Kira and welcome back to another video. As Valentine's Day is just around the corner, I thought today would be a wonderful day to talk about some of my favourite couples from the world of literature. So we have some classics, some contemporaries, some proper romances and others that are maybe a little bit more out there, but I just thought it would be really fun to chat about some fun literary romances and just enjoy the month of Valentine's Day. I know Valentine's Day is just one day, but I feel like it's a common thing on BookTube that February is just the month that is dedicated to all things romance. So let's kick it off with my top 5 couples from the world of literature. And before I jump into those top 5, just a quick disclaimer that technically by mentioning these couples you could consider that as spoilers for some of these books, so I will be leaving a list of all of the books I'll be discussing in the description box down below. So if those are books that you haven't read yet and you want to and you don't want any spoilers, then maybe come back to this video at a later date, but they will be all listed down there so you can make your own decision about whether you want the spoilers or not. I'm personally never bothered about spoilers, but I know other people are, so that list will be in the description box so you can check it out and decide for yourself. So with that being said, in 5th place, I'm kicking it off with my favourite contemporary romance novel and the couple from that novel, which is The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary, and the couple in this book is Tiffy and Leon. I just think this is the most clever contemporary romance ever to exist. I absolutely love the concept. We have Tiffy and Leon who basically are roommates together and they share a 1-bedroom flat, but they've actually never met. Tiffy moves into the flat that Leon is already renting. Leon is a nurse who works night shifts and Tiffy just has a regular 9-to-5 job, so because of their differing schedules, they basically can exist in the same flat, share a bed, share an entire space without ever really meeting. And they gradually start communicating more and more through like post-it notes and little things left around the flat, and they build up this really unique relationship where they feel like they know each other really well, but actually they've never even met in person. And then gradually that obviously transitions into a more traditional relationship, and it's just a really fun way to see a relationship blossom, and I absolutely love it because it's a relationship really founded on purely just getting along with each other and finding a connection rather than, you know, like appearances or anything like that, and that kind of falls in later on, but I just think it's so clever, and as a couple they're really fun. This is a book with 2 perspectives, so we get to see both Tiffy and Leon's perspectives of this relationship unfolding, and I think that is what really made me love not only the concept of this book but them as a couple, because I felt like it's quite unique in romances to get to know each side of the romance equally well. You usually just have one side of the story, but in this one you got both. It was wonderful and I loved it. I feel like I always recommend this romance book, but it's just so good. And moving on to 4th place, the book that I've selected is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and the couple that I've selected is Nikolai Rostov and Maria Bolkonskaya. There are so many couples from this book and so many couples that I absolutely love. I guess I'm going to give some honourable mentions to Natasha and Prince Andrei, Natasha and Pierre. I just absolutely love it, but Maria and Nikolai are the couple that I just love the most from this narrative. If you've read War and Peace, then you'll obviously know about their story. If not, to kind of summarise, these are 2 people that hadn't ever really come into contact with each other. War and Peace is a story with so many characters and they all have various connections, but there are lots of characters that actually never meet or interact. So Nikolai and Maria were one of these characters, but Nikolai is in the army and basically helps Maria in a difficult situation, and that brings these 2 characters together and basically shifts the entire trajectory of both of their lives, and it takes them in a completely different direction. I just absolutely love them because Nikolai is a character that was quite like wild and free in his youth, and Maria is much more sort of religious and reserved and very sort of considerate, and I feel like they both bring different parts out of each other, and Nikolai, I guess, is grounded by Maria, and Maria is, I guess, sort of brought out of her shell a bit by Nikolai and his more like vivacious personality, and I just think that they are such a well-balanced couple and I absolutely love their love story. It's even better in the BBC miniseries, which I basically recommend at every possible opportunity, but it's just so good and I absolutely love it. In 3rd place we have a couple from my favourite anti-romance is what I'm going to describe this book and the genre that it falls into. The book is Normal People by Sally Rooney, and the couple is of course Connell and Marianne. I always describe Normal People as like an anti-romance. I've definitely been criticised before by talking about this book as a romance, but it is a romance. It's not a traditional romance, it's certainly nothing like the Flatshare, but romance is, I guess, the main theme of this book, in the sense that we follow the trajectory of Connell and Marianne's relationship from the point where it kind of kicks off in their last year of high school when they're 18 to the point when they're leaving university when they're about 22. So we follow them in their relationship and all of the ups and downs that it goes through, the fact that it goes through various times of being romantic, of being sort of like a just like friends with benefits situation, from them being friends, not even talking, and we follow them through all of the peaks and troughs of their very, very complicated relationship. So it's not a romance in the sense of being a novel which focuses on bringing together a boy and a girl, and at the end of the novel they're happily ever after and everything worked out. But it is a romance in the sense that I think this is probably one of the most authentic looks at how relationships can actually work in real life. I think situations like Normal People, where people know each other, they meet, they like each other, but things don't go to plan and they constantly come in and out of each other's lives, is probably far more common than the like classic boy meets girl narrative that you get in almost every other romance novel out there. And so I really do feel like Connell and Marianne offer this much more authentic look into what relationships could really be like. And I really do feel like Sally Rooney creates the most authentic characters and interactions and relationships. And so although their romance isn't necessarily traditional, and there are lots and lots of problems and things to be addressed within their relationship, and it's certainly not like a romance that should be idolized, but it is a romance in the sense that it's a couple and their relationship with each other and all of the very, very different things that happened throughout their years together. And I just think it's really incredible, and I love the authenticity. I love both characters. I love how they're flawed and how they both really like each other, but through their own personal issues struggle to come together and have like a solid, healthy relationship. And I just love seeing them grow together and how they have this like magnetic connection that just constantly brings them back into each other's lives. I just love it. I know a lot of other people do, but I know a lot of other people hate it. So I hope you don't mind me including this one in a list of literary couples and romances, but they are certainly a couple, at least for part of the novel. So I love it, and I just think Sally Rooney is a literary genius. And moving on to second place, the novel that I have selected is basically my favourite classic novel of all time. I absolutely love it, and the couple in this book are wonderful, and that novel is Emma, and the couple I'm talking about is Emma Woodhouse herself and then Mr. Knightley. Mr. Knightley is a character who you kind of think is going to be maybe a partner for Emma at the beginning of the book, or at least I kind of had that suspicion, but then things kind of go on a bit of a different trajectory. There are lots of ups and downs and complicated situations. There's a lot of comedy within this book, but what I do love about Emma and Mr. Knightley is the fact that they have a really solid foundation for their relationship. I feel like in a lot of classics of this era, there's just kind of like a almost bizarre situation where a couple kind of like just meets and suddenly they're like madly in love and everything works out perfectly. Whereas in this book, Emma and Mr. Knightley, you know that Mr. Knightley has known Emma her entire life. He's quite a bit older than her, which is a little bit icky, but when you kind of don't think about that, it becomes a lot sweeter because they've known each other for such a long time and they have this really strong bond, and they also have this really incredible connection where they can both freely critique each other. So you see that they can really better each other and sort of hold each other accountable to being the best people that they can be. And that's incredible in a couple. You really feel like this is a relationship where friendship and an intellectual connection is like the basis of the entire relationship, and romance has kind of like grown and blossomed from there. And this is, I think, a really, really incredible book for the like sort of slow burn friends to lovers trope, and I just think it works so incredibly well. Mr. Knightley is definitely like the grounding force for Emma, who is just a little bit like wild and young and doesn't really think about the sort of consequences of her actions, and I feel like with Mr. Knightley as her husband, she will sort of grow into a much more like considered and mature lady. But at the moment of the book, she's just quite young, and I feel like they just make a really incredible connection. I absolutely love it, and I also love this cover of Emma. I bought this one just before Christmas and I'm obsessed. Okay, the time has come. That was a drum roll because it's time for number one spot. This was a difficult decision. It was so difficult to select like the best literary couple in my humble opinion. But the one that I've selected is from the book Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and the couple I have chosen, potentially controversially, is Amy March and Laurie. I know there are a lot of people who read Little Women, despise Amy, and think that Jo and Laurie should have been together, but I'm here to say that I disagree with that completely. I feel like Amy and Laurie are an incredible match, and more to the point, they want to be together. I really don't like the concept of people saying that Jo and Laurie should have been together, because in my opinion Jo is very, very clear about her feelings on Laurie and that she doesn't want to be married to him, and so for people to then suggest that she should have married him kind of goes against the entire point of her character, which is her free will as a woman and that she is worth more than just being married off to someone just because they get along, and sort of like championing that women and men can be friends without it having to be romantic, and that she is worth more than just being someone's wife. So I disagree with the thought that Jo and Laurie should have been together. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that I would like Amy and Laurie. You could just not think that Laurie matches with any of them, but I do really feel like Laurie and Amy match together. They just seem like such a wonderful couple. I especially love the way that their romance is kind of displayed and explored in the 2019 movie adaptation, because Florence Pugh and Timothée Chalamet just make such a wonderful couple in that adaptation. But in general, I just love seeing that sort of blossom, and you see Amy sort of transition from what is often described as quite like a self-centered and inconsiderate little girl into a much more mature woman who actually sort of bridges the responsibility of trying to make sure that her family is financially stable. And you kind of see her sort of balancing that responsibility, which is something that she probably wouldn't have expected to have to carry as the youngest child in the family, but she has to kind of like shoulder that responsibility for making sure the family is financially stable, as well as trying to marry someone for love and not settle for any less, but trying to sort of manage her expectation of what love is and sort of whether love is something that we control or whether it just happens to us. And I just think it's really incredible that they kind of like come together. She's admired him for several years. He sort of comes to finally see her as this incredible woman that she is. And I love it. I just think it's great. And I know it's controversial, but I absolutely love Amy. She is my favourite character from Little Women. And I think that her and Laurie together are wonderful. So that is my favourite couple from the world of literature. I love Amy and Laurie. Please don't hate me if you are team Jo and Laurie, but I just think Amy is superior. And so Amy and Laurie is the match for me. So there we have it. Those are my top 5 literary couples. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on all of these different couples. I feel like I covered quite a few different genres and styles of romances, so I hope you enjoyed them. But before we finish up this video, I do have one slightly less serious honorary mention, which probably doesn't technically count as a couple, but is an incredible partnership and definitely a bromance that I think should be included in this. So without further ado, we have Sam and Frodo from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I just had to. Obviously they're not officially a couple, but they do spend a huge amount of time together throughout this book series. They obviously start on a quest together at almost the beginning of this book, and it goes right through until the end of the final book, Return of the King. And we just see them go on this incredible journey together. They support each other. They are each other's constant companion. They do so much for one another. Sam is such a supportive partner. He's essentially the partner that we all need and deserve. You know, he is basically willing to go to the ends of the earth to make Frodo's dreams and ambitions happen. And he just does so much for him. He's so courageous and brave and is willing to put his life on the line to support Frodo, to try and make sure that he is safe. And Frodo, in turn, tries to protect Sam and also really starts to recognize and appreciate his bravery and courage and the commitment that he made to him and to their cause. And I just think that they are such an incredible partnership. Without either one of them, they wouldn't have been able to achieve the aim of their entire quest. They wouldn't have been able to return the ring to Mordor. And I just feel like their connection with each other and the way that they support each other throughout this series is just incredible and is such a wonderful example of a really, really strong partnership, which I love. So although it's not technically a romance, it is a wonderful friendship, and I think friendships are just as important as romances. So I wanted to include this one in this little video as well, because I just love Sam and Frodo. They're wonderful and they deserve the respect of everyone. So there we have it. Those are all of my favourite literary couples. There could have obviously been hundreds and hundreds more, but those are some of my absolute favourite couples that I've just loved to read about. I hope you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts on them, and I would love to know in a comment down below who your favourite couple from literature is, whether it's from a proper romance, a contemporary, a fantasy, a historical fiction, a classic, or anything else in between. Let me know some of your favourite literary couples down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day and month of love, whatever it is that you might be doing, and I hope you manage to read some wonderful books as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.